Seriously? Like, you did a switcheroo on me, man. Hey there, it's Char. I'm back. I say that a lot, but this time I'm going to try to work on a new series I've been developing based kind of on an AJR song that I really like called 100 Bad Days. And I'd been noticing a trend, an obvious trend on YouTube, and that is to tell stories. So I'm going to tell 100 bad stories because according to AJR, that makes me interesting at parties. So we're going to see how that goes. I think it's good to develop a series because you can build on the series and you can always kind of have a going back to point where if you're not sure exactly what to do, you just go back to, well, what is the series? What is it about? You know, and I have definitely more than 100, just 100 bad stories. I feel like I have so many things that have happened in my life that have been so unfortunate, shall we say. And I don't want to just be like a downer, though. I don't want to just basically say that it's all doom and gloom, but kind of also show my take on how I got over said bad story or bad day. So, yes, that said, I'm going to start with my first story. I managed to pass and fail my driver's ed class at the same time. How do you do that? Just talented, I guess. So when I was learning how to drive, I did not have my own car. My mom and dad had cars, but they were very much feeling that if they didn't have that secondary brake installed on the passenger side, they didn't want me to drive because of reasons. I was the oldest, and I guess I was the first. So, you know, just that kind of thing with having your first kid and learning to drive. So in that way, I never could get any practice at home. So we were doing the driver's ed program, and back in my day, that meant you go to gym class and you signed up for driver's ed, and the gym teacher would take you out. I don't think that's how they do it anymore, but that is, as of like the early 2000s, how they still did it. So I had been learning in this mid-size sedan type of car. It was something like a Chevy Lumina, I think is what it was. And it was a decent sized car. It wasn't the biggest car, but it wasn't the smallest car either. So it was a nice one to learn on, and it was about the year, it was within 5 years of the time period. So it was also a newer car, so that was nice too. And we had been driving, taking turns, me and the other kid that I didn't even know, and we were doing fine. And I had gotten a few notes here and there from my instructor, but otherwise I didn't really have too much in the way that I did wrong. The only note that they kept saying was that I could be a little bit more like assertive with my driving. And I took that to heart because I super am now, so cool. But since I didn't have any practice time at home, all I could do was remember from the last lesson and then take it to the next lesson. And this was over, I'd say, about 3 or 4 weeks of lessons, maybe twice a week we'd go out. So it wasn't nothing, but it wasn't a ton of time. And unfortunately, the instructor, every time he made a comment about my driving style, he just kept saying, well, you really should practice at home. Well, you really should practice at home. Well, you really should practice at home. And I'm like, I can't. you don't understand. Like, that's not possible for me, so quit suggesting it. So that was like the only kind of advice that he would really get, was that I just needed more practice. So now it's time for the driving test portion of the whole driver's ed class. other kid. They went first, and they did fine. We followed the course that we had been practicing, and no real incident. I sat in the back, didn't have a problem. There was a couple of notes that the gym teacher had for the student, and I listened to those notes. And at that point, though, we kind of only had time for one test for that lesson. So I was scheduled for the next time. However, this is the fun part, because on the last day of driver's ed, I get thrown a completely different car. We'd been practicing in these Chevy Luminas, and this whole time there was like 3 or 4 of them to choose from, and we'd always pick one, and it was fine. However, out of nowhere, they decided to pull out this like 1980s Impala, and they're like, okay, go. And I was just like, wait, this isn't the car we had been learning in at all. Like, this is way, way different. And the guy's like, oh, don't worry, they're all the same. If you know how to do one, then you can drive anything. And I was like, okay, but this is still like a lot different than the other one. He was not fazed though. He was thinking that I was going to be just fine. So I sort of took that as a vote of confidence in how the whole lesson would go. However, you're being tested, and and everything was different. The thing was a boat. It was the entire width of the street, and I was in these like little narrow back alley kind of type streets where you had very little like radius to make a mistake, and the steering wheel was like this, so you felt like a freaking boat going down the road. Now, I don't think we really got up past 45, so it wasn't a big deal. Yeah, we just took some like little back roads and went to basically the grocery store and back, and that was our test. But even still, I was a little overly cautious given, the complete change of vehicle and just everything that was different about it. It wasn't the most terrible thing, but it definitely shook my confidence in how I was driving. And remember, I had no additional practice other than this one car that I had been practicing in this whole entire time. So we're done with the test, and for whatever reason, he decides to tell me the results of my test like while we're still out and about, and not necessarily like once we got back to the school. So we're like in this parking lot, and he's just like, well, you didn't really do anything wrong, but I'm not going to pass you. I was like, are you serious? And he's like, yeah, you just seem a little nervous. And I'm like, seriously? Like, you did a switcheroo on me, man. And then you wonder why I'm a little different than normal when I'm driving? And he's just like, I just think you need more practice at home. And I was like, so yeah, that was how I managed to both pass and fail the test. I didn't do anything wrong, and yet he's just like, I just don't feel like I should pass you. It's like, I hate you. You are the literal worst. Yeah, so definitely have more stories if you guys have ideas or anything like that on just general topics. I'm sure I can go through the vault of my mind and find out some kind of interesting story. I also want to use this as a way to improve my storytelling. Hopefully in 100 videos I can improve on that as well. So if you are interested in more of this kind of content, then you can feel free to subscribe. You can check out some more of my art on charreed.com. And as well, I just launched a new website called thegoldentruth.com, and that is where you can find my webcomic that this character that I had been sketching during the whole story time today is called Key, and he is a Saluki, and he is one of the main characters in my comic. So if you want to check out more about that, then you can go to Instagram.com/thegoldentroop and subscribe there too. Just all the places. All right, well, thank you so much for checking this video out, and I hope to see you soon. Bye.